The alarm screamed at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before Marcus had actually set it. His 6-year-old daughter Lily had crawled into his bed sometime during the night, her small fingers finding the phone on his nightstand with the curiosity only a child possesses. She'd somehow managed to change his alarm while half asleep, a skill that simultaneously frustrated and amazed him. Marcus Turner didn't hit snooze. Single fathers didn't have that luxury. He slipped out from beneath the worn quilt his mother had made years ago, careful not to disturb the sleeping angel beside him. Lily's dark curls spread across his pillow like spilled ink, her rosebud mouth slightly open, her breathing soft and steady. For just a moment, he allowed himself to watch her sleep. These quiet seconds before dawn were sacred. They were the only moments that belonged entirely to him. The rest of his day belonged to everyone else. He padded across the cold hardwood floor to the bathroom, splashing water on his face and staring at his reflection. At 34, the lines around his eyes had deepened. Not from laughter, though Lily gave him plenty of reasons to smile. These lines came from worry. From late nights reviewing spreadsheets after bedtime stories. From early mornings packing lunches before the sun rose. From the constant, exhausting mental math of single parenthood, calculating whether he could afford both the field trip permission slip and new shoes this month. His reflection didn't offer any answers. It never did. By 6:15, Marcus had showered, dressed in his carefully pressed shirt and slacks, and started the coffee maker. The kitchen of their small apartment told the story of their life together. Lily's artwork covered the refrigerator, bright, hopeful drawings of houses with smoking chimneys and stick figures holding hands. A chore chart hung beside the window, gold stars marking Lily's accomplishments. On the counter sat a row of vitamins, a half-finished permission slip he'd forgotten to sign, and a stack of bills he'd been avoiding. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed, filling the kitchen with its bitter perfume. Marcus breathed it in like a prayer. He moved through his morning routine with the precision of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Lunch packed, turkey sandwich with the crusts cut off, apple slices that would turn brown by noon, 3 cookies hidden at the bottom as a surprise. Backpack checked, homework folder, reading log, the stuffed elephant Lily insisted on bringing despite being too old for such things. Clothes laid out, the purple dress with the butterflies, her current favorite, already worn twice this week. At 6:45, he gently woke his daughter. "Morning, sunshine," he whispered, brushing the curls from her forehead. Lily's eyes fluttered open, that momentary confusion giving way to recognition, then joy. "Daddy." She reached for him, wrapping her small arms around his neck. He lifted her easily, though she was getting bigger every day. Soon she'd be too heavy to carry. The thought made his chest ache. "Time to get ready for school, baby girl. 5 more minutes. You said that yesterday." He kissed her forehead. "And the day before. It almost worked the day before." He laughed, the sound surprising him. Lily had that effect on him. She was the one person who could reach through his exhaustion and find something still capable of joy. The morning rush proceeded as it always did, a carefully choreographed chaos of cereal bowls and toothpaste, of lost shoes and found socks, of hurry up and 1 more minute. Marcus braided Lily's hair while she ate, his fingers clumsy but practiced. He'd watched approximately 200 YouTube tutorials in the months after his wife left. He still couldn't manage anything fancy, but he could do a passable braid. "Daddy, do you think Mommy will call today?" The question hit him like a punch to the stomach. It always did. "I don't know, sweetheart." He kept his voice steady, neutral. "But I'll be here. I'm always here." Lily nodded, accepting this as she accepted everything, with a child's remarkable resilience and a barely perceptible sadness that broke his heart. She didn't ask why her mother had left. She didn't ask when she'd come back. Perhaps she already knew the answers, in that intuitive way children understand truths adults try to hide. By 7:30, They were in the car, a 10-year-old sedan with a mysterious rattle and a check engine light Marcus had been ignoring for 6 months. The drive to Lily's school took 17 minutes. He'd timed it. He'd timed everything in his life, because single parenting required military precision and a near-pathological attention to schedule. "Have a good day, baby girl." He kissed her cheek at the drop-off line. "Remember, Mrs. Patterson will pick you up for aftercare, and I'll get you at 6. 6 o'clock. Lily held up 6 fingers, confirming. "I know, Daddy." "What if I'm late?" "You're never late." This was true. Marcus Turner had never been late to pick up his daughter. He'd been sick, exhausted, and once genuinely convinced he was having a heart attack, but he'd never been late. Some promises you kept no matter what. Some promises were the only things holding your life together. The drive to Turner and Associates Financial Services took another 23 minutes in morning traffic. Marcus used this time to mentally prepare for the day ahead, shifting from father to employee, from soft to professional. The transition felt like changing costumes between acts of a play. He wasn't sure anymore which role was the real him. The office building rose 12 stories against the morning sky, its glass facade reflecting clouds and ambition. Marcus parked in the garage, grabbed his briefcase, and joined the stream of workers flowing toward the lobby. He exchanged nods with familiar faces, brief smiles with colleagues whose names he sometimes forgot. Small talk was a luxury he couldn't afford. Every minute spent chatting was a minute he wasn't working, and every minute he wasn't working was a minute he couldn't justify his salary, the salary that kept Lily fed, clothed, and in a decent school district. The elevator carried him to the 7th floor, accounting and financial analysis. His department. His domain, in a way, though he was far from the top of its hierarchy. "Morning, Marcus." Sandra from Accounts Receivable waved from her cubicle, her coffee mug already half empty. "How's that adorable daughter of yours? Growing too fast?" The standard response, true enough to be honest, vague enough to end the conversation. He settled into his own cubicle, a 6x6 space he tried to make personal with a few framed photos of Lily and a small succulent plant he kept forgetting to water. His computer hummed to life, emails flooding his inbox with their urgent demands. 3 reports due by noon. A meeting at 2 with clients who'd been threatening to take their accounts elsewhere. A stack of reconciliations that had somehow become his responsibility when Thompson retired last month. Marcus Turner worked hard. He worked hard because he had no other choice. The morning disappeared in a blur of spreadsheets and phone calls, of numbers that needed to align and explanations that needed to be crafted. He ate lunch at his desk, a sad sandwich from the vending machine that bore no resemblance to the one he'd packed for Lily. He didn't take breaks. Breaks were for people who had backup, who had someone at home to share the burden. Marcus had only himself. At 1:47 p.m., his office phone rang with the internal extension he recognized immediately. His stomach tightened. "Marcus? I need the Henderson analysis in my office in 10 minutes. The voice was crisp, professional, feminine. Victoria Chen, Senior Vice President of Operations and, more importantly, his boss's boss's boss. The kind of executive who could end careers with a memo and had been known to do so. "Yes, Miss Chen. I'll have it ready." The line went dead. Victoria Chen didn't waste words on pleasantries. Marcus pulled up the Henderson file, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He'd actually finished this analysis 2 days ago. Preparation was survival when you were a single parent, but he double-checked every figure, every conclusion. Victoria Chen didn't tolerate errors. She didn't tolerate excuses. What she did tolerate, what she seemingly respected, was competence and reliability. He knocked on her office door at exactly 1:56 p.m. "Come in." Victoria Chen's office reflected its occupant, sleek, organized, intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city skyline. Minimalist furniture in blacks and grays. No family photos, no personal touches, nothing to suggest the woman behind the desk had any life outside these walls. She looked up from her computer, dark eyes assessing him over the rim of designer glasses. At 42, Victoria Chen was formidable, sharp cheekbones, sharper intelligence, a reputation that preceded her like a warning. She'd climbed to her position through a combination of brilliance and ruthlessness, breaking barriers and occasionally breaking people along the way. The Henderson analysis. Marcus placed the folder on her desk. She took it without thanks, flipping through pages with the practiced speed of someone who'd reviewed thousands of documents. Her expression revealed nothing. You anticipated the questions about their Q3 projections. It wasn't a question. Their revenue forecasts seemed optimistic given market conditions. I included alternative scenarios. I noticed. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, something flickered there. Approval? Interest? It was gone before he could identify it. Good work, Turner. The client meeting's been pushed to 3:30. I want you in the room. This was unexpected. Marcus usually prepared materials for these meetings, he didn't attend them. Of course, Ms. Chen. Victoria. She returned her attention to the documents. We've worked together for 3 years. I think we can manage first names. Marcus nodded, uncertain how to respond. In 3 years, Victoria Chen had never invited informality. She'd barely acknowledged his existence beyond his work product. This shift felt significant, though he couldn't have explained why. I'll be ready at 3:30. Victoria. Her lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. I know you will. You're always ready. It's one of your more useful qualities. He retreated to his cubicle, unsettled by the interaction. Victoria Chen, noticing him, felt dangerous, like being spotted by a predator deciding whether you were prey or not worth the effort. The Henderson meeting went well, the clients left satisfied, their accounts secure for another quarter. Victoria made the presentation while Marcus provided supporting data, their partnership surprisingly smooth. He anticipated her needs before she voiced them, had answers ready before questions were fully formed. She noticed. He could tell by the way her glances shifted from dismissive to curious. Thank you for your assistance today, she said afterward, as they walked back to the elevator. You made that significantly less painful. Just doing my job. No. She pressed the elevator button, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. You were doing more than your job. You were doing mine. The elevator arrived, saving him from responding. They rode up together in silence, the air between them charged with something unnameable. Over the following weeks, Marcus noticed changes. Victoria requested him specifically for projects. She asked his opinion in meetings, actually listened to his answers. She learned his schedule. You leave at 5:45, correct? To pick up your daughter? And stopped scheduling late meetings that would conflict with it. The attention was flattering and terrifying in equal measure. Marcus had spent 3 years being invisible at this company, and invisibility was safe. Being seen by Victoria Chen felt like standing in a spotlight with no idea what performance was expected. She likes you, Sandra whispered conspiratorially at the coffee maker one morning. Everyone's talking about it. She's my boss. She values my work. Honey, Victoria Chen doesn't value anyone's work. She uses it and discards it. But she's different with you. She actually. Sandra struggled for the word. Notices you. As a person. Marcus poured his coffee, uncomfortable with this observation. He didn't have room in his life for office speculation. He had Lily to raise, bills to pay, a career to maintain. Whatever Victoria Chen's interest in him, professional or otherwise, it didn't matter. Except it did matter, apparently, because she'd started appearing at his desk. Small visits at first. Questions about reports that could have been emails. Comments about his analysis that could have waited for meetings. She'd lean against his cubicle wall, arms crossed, watching him work with an expression he couldn't read. "You're very methodical," she observed one afternoon. "Accounting requires precision." "That's not what I mean." She tilted her head, dark hair falling across her shoulder. "You move through your day like you're following a script. Coffee at 8. Lunch at 12:30. Precisely portioned minutes. It's unusual. I have a daughter. Single parents don't have the luxury of spontaneity." Something in her expression softened. "How old?" 6. "Her name is Lily." "Lily." Victoria repeated the name like she was testing its weight. "That's lovely." It was a small moment, easily forgotten. But Marcus didn't forget. It was the first time Victoria Chen had seemed genuinely interested in his life outside work. The first time she'd looked at him as more than a useful employee. The company's annual gala arrived in mid-October, an extravagant affair at the Grand Marquis Hotel. Attendance was mandatory for senior staff and strongly encouraged for everyone else. Marcus dreaded it. Social events required energy he didn't have and small talk he'd never mastered. But refusing wasn't an option, so he arranged for Mrs. Patterson to keep Lily overnight, a luxury he rarely allowed himself, and dressed in his one good suit. It was 3 years old, slightly tighter, but it would have to do. The ballroom glittered. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across marble floors. A string quartet played something classical in the corner. Colleagues Marcus barely recognized transformed into elegant strangers in evening wear, their office personas shed like old skins. He stationed himself near the bar, nursing a club soda and watching the crowd. This was his strategy at these events, appear present while remaining uninvolved. Check the boxes of attendance without expending precious social energy. The room was full of couples. He hadn't noticed at first, too focused on his own discomfort. But as the evening progressed, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Partners arrived together, hands intertwined. Spouses reunited after mingling separately, sharing secret smiles. A couple in the corner kissed, thinking themselves unobserved, a sweet, casual kiss that spoke of years of intimacy. Another couple by the windows. And another near the dance floor. Everywhere Marcus looked, he saw people paired off, moving through the world in twos while he stood alone. The loneliness hit him like a wave. He wasn't usually susceptible to this particular grief. He'd made peace with his solitary life, or thought he had. Single parenthood left no time for self-pity. But something about tonight, the glamour, the romance, the kissing couples, cracked open a door he usually kept firmly closed. He missed being touched. He missed being known. He missed falling asleep beside someone, waking up next to warmth instead of emptiness. He missed having a partner, a witness to his life, someone who would remember the small moments alongside him. He watched a man brush a strand of hair from his wife's face, the gesture so tender and automatic that it stole Marcus's breath. He'd had that once. Before everything fell apart. "You look like a man who's contemplating something profound." Victoria Chen appeared beside him, elegant in a deep red gown that made her look powerful and impossibly beautiful. Her dark hair was swept up, exposing the graceful line of her neck. Diamond earrings caught the light. "Just thinking," Marcus managed. "Dangerous activity." She followed his gaze across the room, taking in the same couples he'd been watching. "The annual mating display. I find it fascinating. All these people, performing their relationships for an audience. That's rather cynical. Realistic." But her voice lacked its usual edge. She accepted a champagne flute from a passing server, though she didn't drink. "They make it look easy, don't they? Being half of a whole." Marcus watched another couple kiss near the ice sculpture. Some things only look easy from the outside. And from the inside? I wouldn't know anymore. The admission escaped before he could catch it. Too honest, too revealing. He braced for her dismissive response. But Victoria just nodded, her expression thoughtful. Neither would I. They stood together in silence, two solitary people watching the coupled world spin around them. It should have been awkward. Instead, it felt strangely comfortable. I was married once, Victoria said eventually. A long time ago. Before I became. She gestured vaguely at herself, at her position, her reputation. This. What happened? I happened. My ambition, my schedule, my inability to be what he needed. He wanted a wife. I wanted a career. We couldn't find a version of ourselves that wanted both together. She sipped her champagne, finally. I used to regret it. Now I'm not sure. Perhaps some people aren't meant for partnership. Marcus considered this. I don't think that's true. I think some people just haven't found the right partner. Is that optimism? From you? Her smile was small but genuine. I wouldn't have expected it. Having a child makes you believe in possibilities. You have to. For them. Victoria turned to face him fully, her dark eyes searching his face. You're a good father, Marcus. I can tell, just from how you structure your day around her. The way you leave at exactly 5:45, no matter what's happening at work. You've never once asked to skip that obligation. She's not an obligation. No. She's your reason. Victoria nodded slowly. I used to think people who built their lives around children were limiting themselves. Now I'm less certain. Perhaps they've simply found a purpose that makes the limits worthwhile. Across the room, another couple kissed. Marcus felt Victoria watching him watch them. You miss it, she said quietly. Being part of something. Sometimes. More honest than he'd intended, again. Something about Victoria invited confession, though he couldn't have explained why. Most days I'm too tired to notice. But nights like this. Nights like this make the loneliness visible. Yes. She was quiet for a moment, contemplating her champagne. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, almost uncertain. You could have that too, you know. Marcus turned to stare at her, certain he'd misheard. What? What they have? She gestured toward the couples dancing, kissing, laughing together. You could have that. You're a good man, Marcus. Kind, reliable, devoted. Those aren't qualities that go unnoticed. I don't have time. You have time for what matters to you. You've proven that with Lily. Her gaze held his, intense and sincere. Perhaps you've simply decided that you don't matter. That your needs, your happiness, aren't worth prioritizing. The observation landed like a blade, precise and painful. I don't know how to want things for myself anymore, Marcus admitted, the words barely audible over the music. Everything I have goes to her. There's nothing left over. Then build something new. Victoria's hand touched his arm, a brief contact, barely a brush of fingers, yet it burned through his sleeve like fire. You're not too old for a second chapter. None of us are. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. A locked door, rattling on its hinges. Why are you telling me this? Victoria hesitated, and for the first time since he'd known her, she looked uncertain. Vulnerable. Human. Because I've watched you for 3 years, Marcus Turner. I've watched you work yourself to exhaustion and ask for nothing. I've watched you put everyone else's needs before your own. And I've recently started wondering. She paused, choosing her words. I've started wondering if perhaps you're not the only one who's been limiting themselves unnecessarily. The implication hung between them, fragile and frightening. Victoria. You don't have to say anything. She stepped back, reassembling her professional composure like armor. I shouldn't have been so personal. It was inappropriate. It wasn't inappropriate. Marcus heard himself speaking, though the words seemed to come from somewhere outside his careful control. It was unexpected. But not unwelcome. Her eyes met his again, and this time the vulnerability remained. No. No. The string quartet shifted into something slower, more romantic. Around them, couples moved toward the dance floor. Marcus watched them go, thinking about all the years he'd spent alone. All the nights he'd told himself he was fine, that Lily was enough, that he didn't need anything more. My wife left when Lily was 2, he said suddenly. Walked out one morning and never came back. She said I was suffocating her. That she wasn't meant to be a mother, wasn't meant to be tied down. She's somewhere in California now, I think. We haven't spoken in years. Victoria listened without judgment, her expression patient and kind. I spent a long time being angry, Marcus continued. Then I spent even longer being scared. What if she was right? What if I am suffocating? What if I'm too much, too intense, too focused on the people I love? You're not, Victoria said firmly. How do you know? Because I've seen you, Marcus. Really seen you. You're devoted, yes. Intense, certainly. But those aren't flaws. They're exactly what a partner, what anyone, would be lucky to receive. A partner. The word echoed in his mind, creating ripples. I haven't thought about partnership in years, he admitted. It seemed like something that happened to other people. Something I'd forfeited when my marriage ended. You didn't forfeit anything. You survived something difficult and kept going. That's not failure, that's strength. It doesn't feel like strength. The strongest things never do. Victoria moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and complex, like her. They just feel like putting one foot in front of the other, day after day, until you look back and realize how far you've traveled. Marcus thought about his mornings. The 5:47 alarm, the packed lunches, the braided hair. The drives and the spreadsheets and the careful, methodical construction of a life from broken pieces. Maybe she was right. Maybe he was stronger than he knew. I don't know how to start, he said. If I wanted to, try again. With someone. I wouldn't know where to begin. You begin here. Victoria's hand found his arm again, deliberate this time. You begin with one conversation, one moment of honesty. You begin by admitting what you want. What if I don't know what I want? Then you figure it out. Her smile was gentle, encouraging. And you let yourself want it anyway. The music swelled around them. Couples danced and kissed and demonstrated all the connection Marcus had convinced himself he didn't need. But standing here with Victoria, feeling the warmth of her hand on his arm, he wondered if he'd been lying to himself all along. Would you like to dance? The question surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise her. I don't really dance. Neither do I. He smiled, feeling some of his careful control crumble. But I'm told it's good to try new things. To stop limiting yourself. Victoria laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound he'd never heard from her before. Using my own wisdom against me. How very strategic. I learned from the best. She took his hand. Her fingers were cool and certain, her grip firm. Together, they moved toward the dance floor, joining the couples Marcus had been watching all evening. He didn't know the steps. Neither did she. They moved awkwardly at first, two people unused to physical closeness, unused to surrender. But gradually, something shifted. His hand found the curve of her waist. Her head tilted toward his shoulder. They stopped trying to dance and simply moved together, swaying in the music's current. This is nice, Victoria murmured. It is. I can't remember the last time I did something just because it was nice. Me neither. Around them, the gala continued, laughter and champagne and all the glittering performance of corporate celebration. But Marcus barely noticed. His world had narrowed to the woman in his arms, the unexpected warmth of connection, the strange and terrifying hope blooming in his chest. He thought about Lily, asleep at Mrs. Patterson's house, dreaming whatever dreams 6-year-olds dream. He thought about all the mornings ahead, the lunches and the braids and the exhausting, beautiful work of raising her. And for the first time in years, he thought about doing it with someone beside him. The song ended. They stopped moving, but neither stepped away. I should warn you, Victoria said quietly, I'm difficult. My schedule is insane. I've been told I'm cold, demanding, impossible to satisfy. You're not cold. You might change your mind. I might. He met her eyes, seeing the vulnerability she usually kept hidden. But I'd like the chance to find out. Her smile transformed her face, softening all the sharp edges. I'd like that too. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even a first date. It was simply two people, both wounded by their pasts, both afraid to hope, agreeing to try anyway. In the weeks that followed, they proceeded carefully. Coffee in her office, behind closed doors, not to hide, but to protect something fragile as it grew. Conversations about work that gradually became conversations about life. Marcus told her about Lily's school play, her obsession with horses, her still lingering hope that her mother might call. Victoria told him about her failed marriage, her complicated relationship with her own parents, the loneliness she'd numbed with achievement. They didn't kiss. They didn't rush. They built something slowly, brick by brick, both of them understanding that some things couldn't survive impatience. But they were building. And that was enough. Lily met Victoria on a Sunday in November, over pancakes at the diner near Marcus's apartment. It was terrifying, introducing his daughter to a woman who might become important, risking Lily's heart alongside his own. But Victoria was surprisingly wonderful with children. She asked Lily about her favorite colors and actually listened to the elaborate answers. She let Lily teach her how to properly stack pancakes for maximum syrup absorption. She didn't try too hard, didn't perform, just existed as herself, and Lily, with the uncanny intuition of children, responded. I like her, Daddy, Lily whispered that night, as Marcus tucked her in. She looks at you different. Different how? Like you're important. Lily considered this. Nobody looks at you like that. Except me. Marcus blinked back unexpected tears. You're right, baby girl. Nobody does. Maybe she can be family. It was said simply, without agenda, the way children offer profound observations. We have room. They did have room. Marcus was just starting to realize it. The first time he kissed Victoria was on New Year's Eve, at a party hosted by mutual friends. Lily was with Mrs. Patterson again, and the evening stretched before them, adult time, rare and precious. They'd been dancing, badly as always, laughing at their own awkwardness. The countdown began around them. 10, 9, 8. Victoria looked at him, a question in her eyes. 7, 6, 5. Marcus thought about everything that had led to this moment. The loneliness and the fear and the careful walls he'd built around his heart. 4, 3, 2. He thought about Lily, about second chances, about the courage it took to want things. 1. He kissed her. Softly at first, then deeper, years of suppressed longing pouring through the contact. She tasted like champagne and possibility. Her hands gripped his jacket, pulling him closer. Around them, people cheered and shouted and celebrated the turning year. But Marcus barely heard them. He was too busy beginning again. Spring arrived with flowers and fresh starts. Victoria officially met Lily over Easter brunch, transitioning from "daddy's friend" to something more defined. They established routines: Saturday mornings at the park, Sunday dinners at Marcus's apartment, occasional sleepovers when Lily was away at her grandmother's. It wasn't always easy. Victoria's schedule remained demanding, and there were nights Marcus ate dinner alone, understanding she was fighting battles in boardrooms across the city. There were moments of doubt, whispers from colleagues who questioned the relationship's appropriateness. There were arguments, fierce, passionate clashes between two stubborn people learning to merge their lives. But they kept trying. That was the difference. That was everything. On a warm evening in June, Marcus watched Victoria and Lily chase fireflies in the park near his apartment. They were laughing, both of them, joy radiating from their bodies like light. Victoria caught one, cupping it gently in her palms, showing Lily the tiny glow. "It's like magic," Lily breathed. "It is magic," Victoria agreed. "The best kind. The ordinary kind that happens every day if you know how to look." She glanced up, catching Marcus's eye. Something passed between them: understanding, gratitude, love that had grown slowly and strong. He thought about his 5:47 a.m. alarms, the packed lunches, the exhausting calculus of single parenthood. None of that had changed. Lily still came first. She always would. But he'd changed. He'd learned that taking care of his daughter didn't mean neglecting himself. That building a life for two could expand to include three. That love, when it arrived unexpectedly, was worth the risk of reaching for it. Lily ran toward him, fireflies forgotten, launching herself into his arms. "Daddy. Victoria says maybe we can get ice cream." Did she? He looked at Victoria, approaching at a more dignified pace. "I might have mentioned it." She smiled, that rare, full smile that still made his heart stutter. Bribery is a valid parenting technique. I read it in a book. You don't read parenting books. I've started. She said it casually, but her eyes were serious. I figured it was time to learn. The implication hung in the summer air, fragrant with possibility. Marcus shifted Lily to one arm and reached for Victoria with the other, pulling her into their embrace. They stood there, the three of them, a configuration that was starting to feel like family. "Ice cream it is," he said. They walked together toward the shop on the corner, Lily chattering between them, holding both their hands. The evening glowed golden around them, fireflies still dancing in the grass, the world soft and beautiful and full of promise. Marcus thought about his boss's words at the gala, all those months ago. "You could have that too, you know." He'd been so sure she was wrong. So certain his time for love had passed, that he'd been limited to being a father and nothing more. But Victoria had seen what he couldn't. She'd looked past his walls, recognized his loneliness, offered him the courage to want more. And he did want more. He wanted mornings with her, coffee cups multiplied. He wanted her helping with Lily's homework, attending school plays, becoming part of the pattern. He wanted a future that included partnership, intimacy, the kind of love that grew richer with time. He wanted, and that wanting no longer felt like weakness. The ice cream shop was crowded with families, children with sticky fingers and parents with patient smiles. They waited in line, Lily bouncing with anticipation, Victoria's hand warm in Marcus's. "What are you thinking?" Victoria asked quietly. "That I'm grateful. For ice cream? For you." He squeezed her fingers. For the chance to try again. Her expression softened, vulnerability flickering in her usually guarded eyes. "I'm grateful too. More than I know how to say." "Then don't say it." He pulled her closer. "Just stay. I'm not going anywhere." It was a promise. A real one, made by a woman who didn't make promises lightly. Marcus felt its weight settle into his chest, solid and warm. They ordered their ice cream, chocolate for Lily, pistachio for Victoria, vanilla for Marcus, and found a bench outside. The sunset painted the sky in shades of rose and gold. Lily got chocolate on her chin. Victoria wiped it away with a napkin, the gesture automatic and maternal. Marcus watched them together and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of struggle. There would always be bills and schedules and the thousand small challenges of daily life. But peace in his heart. Certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be, with exactly the people who mattered. He had been so afraid. Afraid to want, afraid to hope, afraid to risk his careful, contained existence. But fear was a liar. Fear told you that safety lived in solitude, that protection meant walls. The truth was different. The truth was this: sitting on a park bench, eating ice cream, watching his daughter and the woman he loved laugh together at some joke he'd missed. The truth was happiness. Unexpected, hard-won, absolutely worth the risk. Lily finished her cone and yawned, the excitement of the evening catching up with her. Victoria lifted her easily, settling the child against her shoulder. Lily's eyes drooped, already half asleep. "Let's go home," Victoria said. Home. The word resonated differently now. It meant more than the small apartment with its worn carpets and refrigerator artwork. It meant this: three people, bound together by choice and chance and a love still unfurling its petals. They walked back through the summer evening, fireflies lighting their path. Marcus carried nothing but joy. Behind them, the sun finished setting. Ahead, the stars were just beginning to appear. And between the ending and the beginning, in that precious liminal space, a family made their way home. Together. The stars emerged fully now, scattered across the velvet sky like promises waiting to be kept. Lily slept soundly against Victoria's shoulder, her small fingers curled into the fabric of Victoria's blouse, trusting completely. Marcus walked beside them, his hand resting gently on the small of Victoria's back, guiding them through the quiet streets toward home. He thought about the man he'd been just 1 year ago. The exhausted single father who'd convinced himself that love was a luxury he couldn't afford. The lonely soul who'd watched kissing couples at a company gala and believed that kind of happiness belonged to other people. That man had been wrong. Victoria caught his eye and smiled. Not her professional smile, not her guarded smile, but the real one, the one she saved just for him. The one that said, "I see you and I choose you and I'm staying." "What?" she whispered, careful not to wake Lily. "Nothing." He leaned over and kissed her temple. "Everything." They reached the apartment building, climbing the stairs together. Marcus unlocked the door, and they moved through the familiar routine of putting Lily to bed. Victoria tucked the covers around the sleeping child while Marcus placed her stuffed elephant within arm's reach. They stood together in the doorway, watching Lily sleep. "She's beautiful," Victoria murmured. "She is. You made something beautiful, Marcus. Even when everything fell apart, you built something worth having." He turned to look at her, this woman who had somehow become essential to his existence. "We're building something now. Together." "Yes." She took his hand. "We are." They moved to the living room, settling onto the couch that had witnessed so many lonely evenings. But tonight, Marcus wasn't alone. Tonight, Victoria curled against him, her head on his shoulder, her presence filling all the empty spaces he'd stopped noticing. "I never thanked you properly," he said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me. At the gala, when you said I could have what those couples had." He paused, remembering. "I didn't believe you." "I know. But you were right. You saw something in me I couldn't see in myself." Victoria lifted her head, meeting his eyes. "You were always capable of this, Marcus. You just needed someone to remind you that you deserved it." "And you? Did you deserve it too?" Her smile was soft, wondering. "I'm starting to believe I do." They sat together in comfortable silence, the apartment quiet around them. Through the window, the moon cast silver light across the floor. Somewhere in the distance, a car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating the room before fading. Marcus thought about tomorrow. The alarm would ring at 5:47 a.m., Lily still hadn't figured out how to change it back. There would be lunches to pack, hair to braid, 1,000 small tasks that comprise the architecture of parenthood. But now there would also be coffee shared with Victoria before she left for work. Text messages throughout the day, small check-ins that said "I'm thinking of you." Dinners together when schedules allowed. A future unfolding in ways he'd stopped imagining. "Stay tonight," he said. Not a question, but not quite a statement either. An invitation. "I was hoping you'd ask." They didn't move toward the bedroom. Not yet. For now, it was enough to simply be here, together, in this moment that felt like the beginning of everything. "I love you," Marcus said. The words came easily, naturally, as if they'd been waiting years to be spoken. "I should have said it sooner." Victoria's breath caught. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "I love you too. I think I have for a while. I was just afraid to admit it." We were both afraid. Not anymore. He considered the question seriously. Fear didn't disappear, it simply became less powerful than hope. "Not anymore," he confirmed. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. A kiss that spoke of tomorrows, of shared mornings and intertwined lives, of a family forged from broken pieces and stubborn hope. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria was smiling. "So this is what it feels like," she said. "What?" "Having everything you didn't know you wanted." Marcus pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. "This is just the beginning," he said. And it was. In the room down the hall, Lily stirred in her sleep, dreaming of fireflies and ice cream and the two people who loved her most in the world. Her stuffed elephant was clutched tight against her chest. A smile curved her rosebud lips. She had wished for this, in her quiet, childhood way. Had wished for her daddy to be happy, for their small family to grow, for someone to look at him the way he deserved to be looked at. Some wishes, it turned out, came true. You just had to be brave enough to let them. Remember this, the heart that stays open, even after breaking, is the heart that finds its way home. Your past does not define your future. Your wounds do not disqualify you from love. Every single day, you have the choice to begin again, to reach for connection, to risk vulnerability, to believe that happiness isn't meant only for others. You could have that too, you know, ***. And you deserve every beautiful moment of it.